Okay, so continuing on with lesson 2, this part is asking about these two graphs, f of x and g of x, where x can be any real number. The points marked with dots have integer coordinates, and so we're going to answer some of these questions, and these points will help us in doing that. Use these graphs to sketch graphs of f plus g, so we're adding the two functions together, or f minus g, where we subtract the functions. So really what we can do when we add and subtract these functions, if we're adding, really y equals this. The height of y, or the value for y, is just the two y values added together. In other words, these are going up by 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 2, 3, yeah, these are going up by, the squares are going up by 2. So we're actually at 24. Now if we come down to the other function, this looks like it has a height of 1. Now 24 plus 1 is 25. So in actual fact, the function here, when we're added together, will have a height of 25. Taking another 2 points, these 2 points, this is at 12. This seems to be at a height of 4, so 12 plus 4 is, and we're right on this vertical line here, so when we add them we'll end up at 12 plus 4 is 16. Taking out a couple of points, the next 2 points are here, so when we add these it's 4 plus 5 is going to be 9. We'll end up here, and again 4 plus 0 will end up at 4. This is 0 plus 1, so we're going to end up at 1. 4, a height of 4, and a height of negative 4, we end up at 0. What do we have here? A height of 12, and looks like negative 11, so it looks like we end up at positive 1. We've got 24 here, and negative 20 here, so we end up at 4, so that would be there. And this just carries on, so you can see we've got a parabola shape here like this. So we can join the dots if we like. When we do this other function here, when we subtract, instead of adding, we're going to subtract. Now notice we have to take f first and subtract g. So the above one is f, and maybe I'll switch colors for that. We'll go to red. If I take f, the function f, at a height of 24 and subtract 1, we get to 23. And my next set of points, I've got 12, take away 4, gives me 8. So my next point will be here, and so on. You can go through all the points again just like we did before, and you'll get a graph for this guy here. Switching back to blue, the functions f and g above are actually given by this and this here. So write expressions for f plus g. So you have to add these two equations together or subtract them in this case here. So we've done that in part 1 above. This is part 2. And so I'll let you do that. And I'm just going to pause so I can scroll down. Okay, so it says to use a graphing calculator to graph the functions from part B. So when you get your answers to this and this, in the form of x squared, x and a number, you can actually use your graphing calculator and plot them and see if they're similar to what we had up here. I'm just going to erase everything on the board for now. So you can check the curves that you got on the graph here to see if they're the same on your calculator, and they should be. State the domains and ranges of the functions. Again, you should be able to do that. It looks like it might be all real numbers for the domain. The function, oh, it doesn't ask for the range. But the range would obviously depend on how low, what lowest y value or highest y value if it's upside down. In this example, the sum and difference of the two quadratic functions are quadratic functions. You can see that if I take this and subtract this, I'll actually get 3x squared and change. I don't know how many x's or numbers, but it's definitely going to be positive 3x squared. So it will be a quadratic function when we add or subtract. Can you find two quadratic functions whose sum or difference is not a quadratic function? Well, again, similar to last time, you can take a quadratic function and you can call it anything you want, a, b, c, or whatever. If we call it a of x and just write x squared, there's a quadratic function. And b of x could also be something like negative x squared plus 5. So in fact, when we add these two, the x squares are going to cancel. We'll just get plus 5. In other words, we have, forget that. If we have a plus b of x, it simply is going to equal 5, and that is not a quadratic. You can pick two other functions, not just these two, and similarly when you subtract them rather than add them, the x squareds, you want them to cancel out so that you don't have a quadratic function. It doesn't have to give you a value, a numerical value like this. It could also give you, when you add them together, something with an x. As long as it's not an x squared, then this is not a quadratic if you end up something like this. Okay, class example number 1 says consider these two functions and determine expressions for f of x plus g of x. So if we do that, f of x is x to the 3, excuse me just a minute here, so x to the 3 minus 2x squared plus 6, and now we're going to add g of x, so g of x is x cubed minus 2x plus 6. So if we go ahead and add all this up, we'll get 2x cubed, we've got negative 2x squared, so that's the only squared term here, so we can put that next as negative 2x squared. X terms, negative 2x here, so negative 2x, and then finally 6 plus 6 is 12. Similarly, we can subtract the functions, and you should be able to do that by now. Complete the following statements. F of x plus g of x is a something of two functions, f and g. It's a sum. Oh well, is it? Yeah, you're summing here, so it's a sum of two functions, and can be written like this. I guess they're asking these two functions up here. So what is it when we add them? Well, basically we did it right here and we simplified it, so this actually goes right in here. It's the same thing. And again, this would be a difference, and again, whatever you get here goes in here. Okay, whatever answer you get for here, it will go in here. Right here, they're just using f minus g of x. Okay, evaluate the following. What is f plus g when x is negative 2? So we can take our equation, this one right here, and fill in our x's with negative 2. Okay, we'll do that quickly because don't want this video to be too long. X is negative 2. We'll cube it. Minus 2, negative 2 squared, minus 2, negative 2, plus 12. Okay, negative 2 cubed is 8. 2 8's 16. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times negative 2, negative 8. This is going to be positive 4. And this will be plus 12. So that all equals, if we add it all together, 32 minus 8, so what's that? 30 minus 6, 24 I believe. You can check my math. And this would need, you need to have worked out whatever this happens to be. What is this equal to? And then use it here, replace x with the square root of 6. Alright, last example here. Multimedia production company produces DVDs which cost $3 per unit. The fixed costs, including the graphics, are $10,000, irrespective of the number of DVDs produced. Each DVD retails for $15. So if you were just to make one DVD, it would cost you $10,000 plus 1 times $3. Okay, if x is the number of units produced, we're going to produce x number of DVDs. Answer the following in terms of x. Okay, write the total cost as a function of the number of units produced. The total cost is c of x, and we have to write it as a function of the number of units produced. So, in other words, x would be the number of units produced. So let's suppose we actually printed x DVDs. Well, the cost is $3 per DVD. Okay, so that means $3, and we're going to times that by the number of DVDs we produce, which is x. And we also have this $10,000 every time, whatever we do. That is the startup costs, or the fixed costs. So there is our function. $3 times the number of DVDs produced will be one set of costs, and this is the fixed cost. So that's what our function will look like. Write the revenue as a function of the number of units produced. Well, revenue as a function of x, the number of units produced, will depend on the price that we sell them for. We sell them for $15 each. So $15 times the number of units we sell. 15 times x. Write the company profit. Well, profit is just basically revenue minus cost. So profit, another way to write that is revenue minus the cost. We can write it as like that, or we also, of course, can write it as r minus c of x. So what does this look like? Well, basically revenue is 15x, and we've got to subtract the other function. With this negative, make sure everything goes in brackets when you're subtracting, because you have to subtract all of this, not just the 3x. So what does that look like? The answer would be 12x minus $10,000, or minus 10,000. Determine the company's profit if 20,000 DVDs are produced. In other words, x becomes 20,000. So 12 times 20,000 minus 10,000. So we're just using this equation for the profit, and I really should put px here equals that. Okay, don't have a calculator at hand, but I'm thinking that's 240123 minus 10. So what's that? I think I'm doing this correctly. 24 is, yeah. So we have $230,000 profit. Pretty good stuff. Okay, well that's all for now. Thanks for watching.